Hey, thanks for stopping by and clicking on this video. So in this video, we're going to look at how we can use other house music tracks to get inspired to create our own songs, and then how we can use reference tracks to help us with arrangements, and also how we can set up our master bus plugins that will help us get the level of our track comparable with that of our reference track, and also then how we can maybe use or borrow different elements from a reference track to help us get inspired to create our own tracks. So if this sounds interesting to you and you want to find out how to do all this, you can stick around. Now, if you're wondering who I am and why I'm making these videos, you can check out this video here on my channel, or you can visit my website at www.audiotechaudio.com, where you can learn more about myself, my credentials, and read a testimonial as well. So let's jump straight in. So here in Logic, I have a reference track already set up that I found inspirational to help me then with my productions. So I've imported this, and if we look at this waveform here, we can see that along the waveform, it looks visually different. So that's given us some indications that there is some changes in the arrangement of this track. So we can zoom in and have a look at each sort of area, our element. At the start here, we have what would normally be just an intro, a percussive element of the music, just some drums and percussion. Then from bar 17, then we can see that the waveform looks a little bit more compact, and it gradually gets even thicker as we go across here, and more information being added to this track as we move along from bar 17 to bar 65. So that would probably end up being a bass line would be added, maybe some melodic elements, some vocals, and so on. Then when we get to this section here at bar 65, we have what we call a breakdown, and then that will tend to build in energy, and then you have here just a little bit of the release in energy before it kicks into the next section here as well. And then we can move on, and we can see there's further changes in the track that's going to help us with our arrangement. Another tool we can use to help us to find out some information about this track is an app here called mixingandmastering. So if I go to my reference track folder and find that track, and what I can do then is take this track and drop it into this app here. It's going to analyze that track there and then tell me some information about it. So first of all, it's telling us the key of the track and the BPM. That's going to help us then align our track with the beats and bars and get this track to the right tempo. And it also tells us then what key the track is in. So if we want to use that information then for melodies and bass lines and so on, we can. So first thing I'm going to do is change the tempo here to match the BPM of the track. And then if I change this to an E minor here as well, this will help me later on with tracks that I'm using. So if I'm going to go into my loops folder, then bring Apple loops in when I'm building my track, they will be in the key that is matching the project here as well. So that's one way we can start using this app just to get some initial information about the track that we are referencing. Now we can start adding markers here so that we can then copy this arrangement. So I've got an intro marker here. I'll draw another one here, then another one here, and then I'll start drawing another one here as well. And then as we continue working through this, this will give us some indication of different sections of the song that we want to align with so that we can then build an arrangement as well. You can color code these markers, give them names as such. So for example, I can type on this marker here and then type something like intro here, and then on this one I might say something like bassline introduced, and so on. So if we analyze this track, listen to it, we can listen to the different elements, and then we can use that then to help us with our arrangement markers for our own track. So that's one way we can use a reference track there, just to set up some markers and find out some information about the song, find the key of the track, the BPM, and so on. So the next thing we want to do is have a look at our master bus so that we can then help get our levels matching the reference track that we're going to use. So I'm going to go to my Audio FX here and then insert a limiter. And then when that's in place, I'm going to set the attack and release settings there and turn off auto gain. So I have a slow attack, a fast release, and then I'll adjust this setting later on when I'm adding some more information. Then I'm going to add here a meter so that I can then check levels. the BX meter I've talked about in a previous video. Then I'm going to add metric AB as well, and talked about this plugin as well previously in another video, so I'll show you how that works soon again. And from there on, then I'm just going to introduce my last plugin just to get me started, which is going to be my headphone calibration plugin, which is from here. So I'm going to set that up to match the headphones that I'm listening to. And again, I've already talked about this plugin in a previous video, telling you what this does and how we can use this then to hear a true sound coming out of our headphones. So that's what I'm going to do initially on my master bus, is just set up those plugins just like this. Okay, there will be further plugins that we will introduce to this later on, but this will just get you started. So the next thing I want to do is add a reference track now to metric AB. So I'm going to pull up this here, click here, and load my audio file. And then I have a folder with all of my reference tracks that I normally use. I'm going to take the track there, which I have on my timeline, and also load that in there. So what we've got here now is that I've just used this track initially for arrangement purpose, but then I'm going to use it here to A/B the levels of any music that I create with this. So that will be set up then ready so that I can match how my track sounds with this as well. So moving on, the next thing I'm going to do is have a look at how we can now use or borrow elements from this track to help us get inspired and create our own tracks. So in Logic, there is a feature where you can basically do a stem split, and you can get other software for this that will help you split the stems as well. And what we can do with this is we can use a tool like Stem Splitter, and we can then break this track down into vocals, drums, bass, and other elements like FX and so on. So I'm going to split that there and just let Logic analyze it and then create all of those stems that we could use to help us with our track as well. So there are third-party stem splitters or websites that you can use. So if you upload your songs to a website, you can then use these tools then to help you create tracks and split out your stems like this. So if we have a look at this now, we can see that Logic is basically splitting this track into lots of different elements here. So there are vocals on this track, drums on this track, and bass on this track, and then some other elements there which are being used for FX and so on. Now, we mentioned earlier that the bass line was going to be introduced at this point, and as you can see here on this track, this is exactly where the bass line is starting. So if we were to play this back now, this would just sound like the full track, but we could then solo different parts of the track and then listen to those parts as well. So if you wanted to maybe sample the drums from here, you could do that, listen to that, and then cut out drum hits and so on. Or maybe if you want to find out how the bass line is played, you could use that. Okay, so you can see the timings here of where the best bass line is coming in terms of bars and beats. So let's have a look at what we can do with this then. So I'm going to select this track. From here, we can find out further information about our bass line. So I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to go to another function in here where I turn on flex pitch. So what this will do now is it will start analyzing the bass line, and then it will give me some information about which notes are being played for the bass line. So if I scroll down through here, as we can see there, you have some note information. Okay, and here we can see that these notes are being played here, as we said, matching our key of E here. Okay, so we've got C, D, E, and then occasionally it drops down into a D as well. So what I can also do with this now is I can go to edit, and then I can create a MIDI track from this data. So I can click here, and now this has given me a MIDI track from that bass line. So what that means now is that I can basically assign a synth to this. So if I find a synth with some decent bass sounds, I mute all of the other tracks here just so that we only hear the bass line. So from that bass line now, I've generated a bass line that I can then use in my track. So if I go to some bass presets here, now obviously at the moment that sounds quite low in pitch. So what I'm going to do is just going to make some changes to that. And here we can see that there's note data all the way around the piano roll here, and even here the bass line has been broken down into the different sections as well. So if I just select all of this data very quickly, and then I'm going to move it up in terms of an octave or so. So let's just drag it up the next octave there, and then so again I can change here some information on the wave shapes as well, so that we can then get a bass line that is very similar to the one from the track. Now, if you're not comfortable with copying and using that data, MIDI data, what you could also do then is open this, zoom in, and then you can start to maybe make some changes to the notes that you are seeing, maybe in terms of position or pitch as well, so that you can then start to generate your own bass lines from that bass line. So all we're doing is we're taking that track's bass line and we're using that then to get some inspiration to help us then create our own tracks. Okay, so just wanted to go over some quick ideas there about how to use flex pitch. I think most DAWs will have something similar inside them where you can analyze audio and then create a MIDI file or track from the audio that you have just analyzed. Again, stem splitting, I'm not sure if your DAW would have this, but if not, there are third-party tools that you can also use to help you with that as well. So these are just some ideas to get you started. And again, if you wanted to use maybe the vocals from this track here, you could, again, cut those out, sample them, and sample some of the drum elements, even sample the bass line if you wanted, or even sample some of the interesting parts of the track as well. So this is just a little tip, some tricks how to use a reference track to get you started, and how to give you some inspiration, how to set up markers in terms of arrangement for your track, and then how you can then continue working on this track by just borrowing some ideas from it as well. So yeah, so I hope you found this video useful and these tips and tricks helpful to get you inspired to start creating your own tracks. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.